We're back from a short summer break with this week's edition of the Between Two Bs podcast. I'm your host, Dave Walker of the B2SMB Institute. PayPal's new SVP of Product and Technology, Raj Mukherjee, joins us to talk the transformative impact of AI on commerce. From his years at Microsoft and Google and GoDaddy and Indeed, his perspective is a very rich one as he talks challenges and opportunities of AI to small business and the importance of leadership in navigating these changes. Buckle up. Good day, everybody. Dave Walker here from a lake house in the middle of Indiana. Beautiful, hot day, mid-90s, about to go out on the boat. But before I do, I have the opportunity to have this amazing conversation with Raj Mukherjee. Raj, welcome.
Dave, it's an honor to be here. I know we have known each other for a long, long time, and always a pleasure to work with you in whatever capacity I can.
Honor is mine. You know, we've kicked this can down the road of this podcast a couple of times because while you left Indeed back in December and were doing some really fun and interesting stuff and helping out, you have this impulse when you leave a big job to, you want to give back in some way because you realize how blessed you are. And we've had that conversation before. But I think I even said to you, they're going to find you. Somebody's going to find you, Raj, and make you an offer that you cannot refuse. And that happened. So you've recently joined PayPal. Why don't you give a quick description of what your remit is for that small payment company out in the Bay Area?
Yeah, that small payment company that probably started the e-commerce revolution 25 years back. I would say PayPal is an incredibly unique company and at an incredibly unique time. And I know we'll talk a little bit about the times, but everything we know, everything we hold sacred is being questioned as we speak. And it's being challenged as we speak. And PayPal is at the crossroads of that. And my role is also at the crossroads of that. So what I'm responsible for is what they call the SMB and financial services product area. And the idea there is very simple. All small businesses are going to have a different way of approaching both e-commerce and service-based commerce. So if you're selling your service, think of it as, hey, I'm an electrician. How do I actually use AI in a different way to get customers, to get paid, to ultimately run my business more effectively? That also applies to an e-commerce merchant. And all of this is to say that the world of commerce is being upended. And that ties to the second part, which is financial services. That's at the core of how SMBs are ultimately going to experience this new world where everything that they have been doing ultimately depends on them being financially savvy about the opportunities that they leverage. And PayPal is at the heart of that. They are essentially positioning themselves as and I say they because I'm looking at it outside in, they're trying to position themselves as the commerce platform of the next century, and they have a shot at it. Now, there are others who might also say they are positioning themselves. That's true. And there may be more than one. But I think PayPal's got a really unique chance to position itself as the commerce platform of the future.
And I think that those fundamental operational elements of running a business, i.e. getting paid, one of the most fundamental and important, is something that is like most of those really gargantuan aspects of business. They're subject to the same kinds of revolutions, really. And I think we miss that sometimes. I think we miss the fact that, picking up the phone, there's a lot more to it now than just picking up the phone and making phone calls. There's a lot more to those kind of fundamental operations. And so I think these utilities that have been around for a long time, and I would argue that PayPal in some form is a utility, has become of a utility status, are just as ripe for revolution, frankly, as the most innovative, forward-thinking companies in the world. And I think that's probably why you joined, is because it's got that tremendous opportunity. Talk a little bit about, and I think this is kind of our jumping off point into really the conversation that I was hoping to have with you. And that's really about the impact of AI. And stepping back for a minute, just broadly speaking, what do you think are the principal impact areas of AI on enterprise? And I ask you this in the context of someone who has built products for 25 plus years and has led product development teams for that duration. It's some of the biggest brands, the GoDaddies, the Indeeds, now the PayPals of the world. When you think about contextualizing the products that you're building that are responsive to the needs that business have based on AI's impact, what are those things that you kind of put at the top of the whiteboard and say, we're going to have to address this, this, and these things?
Yeah, I mean, the interesting part about AI, and we can talk about the business side of things and then the product side of things. Fundamentally on the business side, what it actually creates is this notion that something that used to take you years to do can now take hours to do.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a tectonic shift in terms of productivity that is naturally happening. And things you couldn't even imagine that you could do are now going to be done at a cost that is far, far lower than anything we have experienced ever. We all understand that notionally now. How does that affect first internally inside the company? So I always say in a product company, there are really three things that are changing fundamentally. Mm-hmm. Number one, the way your internal product development is happening, that is going to change. And your engineers, your product managers, your designers, anyone touching data, all of those people are going to be way more blessed than they were even a year back. And these tools are evolving so fast. So as an example, I have been able to build apps on the side myself after 15 years of not coding with a few instructions. But whatever my favorite platform of choice is, I can use that, whether it's a Cursor or Replift or a Windsurf, it doesn't matter. I'm able to use one of those to actually build what I want to build. Essentially, what it does is it expands the number of people who will touch code. Mm-hmm. People often say that, hey, coding's dead. Coding's not dead. It's how we code. That has changed. Mm-hmm. People still need to express their thoughts, and that needs to be programmatically executed. Mm-hmm. That is there. It's done differently now. Mm-hmm. I would say that's fundamentally one area that's changing. Second area that's changing, every function, you name it, whether it's a legal function, a finance function, whether it's a sales function, marketing function, all of these functions are fundamentally getting transformed. And there are many, many tools that are out there. It's again, we are at a world where, just like we saw, Dave, during the e-commerce boom, there is so many tools out there, it's actually hard to discern which one is good and which one isn't. Fundamentally, every function is being really rethought, grounds up. So I just met a lawyer who now uses a bunch of AI tools to actually do basic document processing and do legal briefs much faster than they were able to do. So all of these things that felt a little science fiction-y has now happened. And so all these functions are changing. That's number two. So first, development function is changing. Second, other functions around it is also changing. And then last, this is perhaps the most important one, which is every product that a company was selling, whether it's a software product or a hardware product with software, it doesn't matter. Every product is becoming more intelligent and in some ways is able to do more for the end user than it was able to do. Mm-hmm. So taking an example of what has been publicly launched by so many companies, mm-hmm. not just Indeed or LinkedIn, you have this notion of interviews getting transformed dramatically, right? So I'll just take a very simple example and make it tangible. A few years back, we were toying with the idea that, hey, maybe there will be a world where anyone can, at any point in time, asynchronously interview. I'll just choose a time of my own choice. I will go in and I will do my interview. The interview will ask me some pre-recorded questions and I'll answer them. But fundamentally, that has absolutely changed now. I just talked to a CEO of a small startup yesterday. I was advising her, and one of the things that we talked about is how she is building a tool for what you would call the lower end of the spectrum of hiring. So you can think of Starbucks baristas and whatnot. And she's fully automated the first screen interview that any of these companies do. But with a human in the loop. This is the very important part. AI is good, but AI also makes a lot of mistakes. So the human in the loop corrects for that. So these three areas, bringing it full back home, your product development is going to change, every function is going to change, and the products you sell to your customers are going to dramatically change, and the value they provide is going to change.
I do want to kind of dive in on each one because I'm fascinated by your perspective. From the standpoint of product development, building the products and services that are really companies are taking to market, what exactly is AI helping with? I answer this as kind of a leading question. In the functional creation of code, I get it. Of course it's faster. It's kind of like what word processing did to typing. I mean, it's just making things fundamentally very much faster. How is it making it smarter? How is it making it more intelligent? And as someone who has sat in the chair of an engineer, does it make the creative aspects of your product development better? And if so, how does it do that exactly?
In the long term, the thing that is going to stay, I believe, with humans, and this is a much more longer term. Like we talk about AGI, are we in AGI? There's a lot of debate around that. I'm not smart enough or educated enough to make a guess on whether we are in the world of AGI or not. I would just simply posit one thing, which is the thing that makes us uniquely human are our taste. So when we look at something, is this actually meeting the standards that we have set for whatever it is that we wanted? That's very uniquely human. And our ability to connect the dots and be able to ultimately solve for a particular decision. So gather all the inputs, think about all the things that the AI provides, but ultimately balance both the subjective and the non-sub and the quantitative data and make a decision that's grounded in reality. Could AI make all of those things? It could. I'm not saying it's impossible for it to make those decisions, but I think somewhere this ability to make the trade-off that may not seem obvious, I don't know if AI is quite there yet. So that's why I said I don't know if we are in the AGI world, if in 10 years I'll have a different answer. I don't know that truthfully. But as a father of a 19-year-old, the thing that I always tell her is what you need to focus on is learning, like being able to learn quickly and unlearn, learning and unlearning, that cycle, very important, which means you have to be curious and you have to constantly reinvent yourself. Second thing, be truly, objectively excited about everything around the world that is happening so that you ultimately know what is it that drives. People say we have to do what you're super passionate about. I actually have a different term for it. I call it where your will and skill meet. You can be passionate about, I am insanely passionate about cricket. And this is a sport that's not played in America as much. And I'll throw a name that most Americans don't know. Sachin Tendulkar, who happens to be from India, is considered the god of modern day cricket. And do I want to be Sachin Tendulkar? Oh, so at times I feel like I want to be. But even if I have the passion, I don't have the skill.
Right.
So I would rather stay in my lane and do the things that I'm really skillful in. So why I bring this up is that's what makes us uniquely human. It's we have to go back to that. And that is where ultimately AI will meet the human at the right place. I actually want a world. I mean, people talk about a world where every job will be taken away, the world will become very dystopian and bad. There is a world that could go there. I'm not suggesting that that isn't possible. And I know Geoffrey Hinton has been talking about that AI left unguarded is going to take us in that direction. So I don't call myself an optimist. I'm a realist. I actually think we have survived 10,000 years for a reason. Despite all the fightings, I mean, every day there's a war, we still have survived. I actually think we will survive if we are able to keep that realism in mind and understand that we have to use AI much more effectively than we are using it today. That's our job as humans. How do we work with this incredibly intelligent machine that is complementary to our intelligence?
As has been imagined so many times. I mean, how many movies, how many books have been created around this notion that there's a confrontation between some super machine intelligence and human beings. And the moral of the story always seems to be humans win out because they are so filled with the undisciplined, the organically creative, the things that make us human, and that's something that machines cannot learn and cannot actually acquire. But back to the idea of the second area of impact. Repeat that for us so that we hear it once again and I don't butcher it.
No, I think it's really 3 areas that AI is intersecting, especially in a technology company, but actually in any company. One is how you build your product.
Right.
Second is how everything supports the teams that build the product.
Right.
And third is the product that you sell to your customers or products that and services that you sell to your customers. All 3 have changed. And I mean, fundamental ways. I mean, I won't name a company. I was talking to the co-founder of that company, and one of the things he brought up in a recent conversation is majority of our customer service is now being done by AI. So I asked, you actually have less customer service agents? And his answer was no. Actually, what's happened is we couldn't have given the best customer service to our top customers. We were not able to do that as well. So now what we do is do white glove for the best customers and make them feel super special. So we've created like an upper tier. So they're spending more time with these customers. There's a human touch. You talked about being human is uniquely different than being a machine. And the kinds of conversations they're happening are opening a different kind of wallet share for them. So it's actually increasing their business, which gives them more dollars to fund back to the business and do the kind of stuff they want to do. So that's what I want to hear more stories about. I'm not saying AI isn't going to take jobs, especially coming from Indeed, where I've seen this data for the last 10 years. AI is going to take jobs. Let's just cut the bullshit, Dave. Like AI is going to take jobs. There are going to be some jobs that will not exist. Just like today, I mean, 100 years back, if you go back to England, there were people who used to knock on people's windows to wake them up so that they could go to the factories. And that job doesn't exist.
Right.
It's gone. Alarm clock has replaced. The mechanical alarm clock has replaced that. And now obviously there is digital alarm clocks and whatnot. But the reality is that job has been replaced by many more jobs that are much more exciting for humans to do.
Agreed.
Yes. So the thing that I worry about more, I mean, this is the part, and maybe we go there. This is the part that I really worry about, is the speed of change. Do we have time to change society effectively for the change that is coming? That is the part I don't know an answer to.
You know, bringing it kind of close to home, particularly in your new assignment, I've asked this question of a lot of senior executives over the course of the last 6 months of, you know, the pace of change right now is astounding. Absolutely astounding, as breathtaking as I've ever experienced in 40 plus years in business. And I put myself back into those executive committee meetings and wondering, how on earth do we plan? How on earth do we forecast? How do we project? How do we basically keep eyes forward in as objective and as disciplined a way as possible? So how are you thinking about that as you think about the changes in which you're being charged to do at PayPal? How are you going to keep up? How are you going to keep up with all the things that are going to be your input points?
You still need to plan. You still need to, you talked about everything changing, and you still need a longer term financial plan, because I forget which general said this. The act of planning gives you the discipline to think about the inevitable. But you also know that when you go into war, every plan is going to go thrown out of the window. So it's my version of whatever he said. But that's the reality. You have to plan, but you also need to be aware that whatever you plan is not going to meet the test of the war that you're going to find out there. And so that's how I operate, and that's how I am seeing at least the leaders that I'm working with closely at PayPal. And this is 1 month in, so take it with a grain of salt. I actually don't know enough about the company to give you one way or another, like how exactly it will evolve. But do I see a sense of tremendous urgency in the company? Yeah, I see that. I see an urgency that says that, hey, you know, the world has been turned upside down. The AI can do things that we never imagined it was possible. To give you a simple example, PayPal, we are really trying to think about what the world of agentic commerce could ultimately mean for each one of us. I mean, let's take a simple example, Dave. Like today you go in and you pretend that, I'll give you my example, and then you can say whether this is a relevant example for you also or not. It's starting to get to winter. I need a winter jacket to visit my daughter, and I go somewhere. I start searching for it. I give it some parameters. It takes some time. Pretty soon I've spent an hour trying to find out like something that I really like. And then I realized that maybe I should go to a store and buy something. It happens to me all the time. Like whenever I don't buy things that often, especially clothes, but when I do end up buying one, I spend a lot of time without essentially getting the gratification I want. I would love, like literally, I would love for an agent that would do all this work for me and actually ship 3 choices to me that I can pick from. Can this be done? Absolutely, it can be done in this new world. And so the world of shopping, the world of e-commerce, the world of general commerce is going to be upended as we speak. And I very much hope, like this is the reason why I joined PayPal as well. I very much hope that PayPal is a part of that story. It's a part of enabling commerce to become much more frictionless than it is. Whether it's the payment stack, like we are talking about, hey, how Web3, or we can go into stable coins and all the jazz around that, how Web3 is playing a role in it, and also the layers above, which is the experience layer, how that is going to play a role in it. Why I bring all of this up, ultimately, it is about truly the will of a company to change with the times. The companies that will win, like this is going to sound like alarmist, but truly I mean it. The companies that will win in this next generation are the companies that will embrace AI in every single thing that they do. Every single thing they do.
I wholeheartedly agree, but I also see an undercurrent amongst many senior executives that's based in the realization I'm disrupting myself by what I'm doing. And
Yeah.
I'm undercutting whatever my historical way of doing things, the way I've been doing it forever. And by disrupting myself, I'm creating uncertainty and a greater possibility of failure. So I'm not quite sure I want to embrace it. Yes, there's that kind of hesitance that happens. If we fundamentally believe those who are going to embrace this change opportunity, this massive disruption, even when it means disrupting themselves, what's your advice? I mean, what's your arm around the shoulder moment where you're saying you got to do it, man? You got.
I mean, I'll draw from one experience from the very, very early days of my career. I'll also give an external example and then I'll bring it back home. So I'll give you 3 examples so that it's very, very clear. So going back when I first started at Microsoft, Microsoft had a truly innovator's dilemma moment. Google was coming after them and they were coming every moment. And Microsoft was an old, stodgy incumbent. Google was this upstart, fast, really nimble in terms of how they're thinking, and came with Google Apps. And Google Apps is a suite of products that was primarily built online and not have the legacy that Microsoft had with its offline products, such as Microsoft Office, Outlook, or Word, or any of the other variants. Microsoft figured out a way how to compete with Office 365. I was part of that team. I'm very lucky to have played a role in that transformation that truly paid dividends for Microsoft even decades after it was done. Now, that is an incumbent fighting back. The incumbent had natural advantages. The incumbent always has natural advantages. It has distribution. It has mindshare. It has what I call unique cash flow position. They have the money to invest. They can buy their way into things that are necessary. But most incumbents always get stuck with, I'm going to lose the way I make money. The business model is going to be different. Well, yeah, it is. You have to actually figure out how not to get stuck on your old business model. And you have to figure out how to transform your business model to this new business model. Microsoft successfully did that. And that's why you see how valuable of a company it is today, a couple of decades later. Another example I give, and this is in the world of SaaS, is Adobe. And both of us are old enough to remember Adobe was basically a desktop software. And you look at Adobe today, the transformation of the company and what Shantanu Narayan has been able to pull, another Haas guy, love that he has been able to pull that off. It's a true transformation story of a company that was old, stodgy company, desktop oriented, to now a cloud first company. And had a second act that very few companies have. Now, to bring that home into today's world, there are lots of companies that have, quote unquote, won what I call the SaaS game and the last decade of mobile and SaaS transformation that has happened, so cloud transformation that has happened. But they're now looking at each other and like, hey, what just happened? The ground underneath is shaking. What's my future? Like every company, every single company that had a franchise built on SaaS needs to be concerned. I'm not saying they're done and there will be no future or none of that. I think that's alarmist. That makes for a good clickbait article. But what the reality is, they have to figure out what their future with AI looks like. I mean, you see a lot of these companies starting to take it extremely seriously. Like one company that I've been noticing, they are doing a lot of stuff recently that has caught my attention is HubSpot, as an example. Again, run by another Haas alum. I have a soft spot for leaders who come from the same business school that I went to. But I think the thing that I particularly like is they are trying, whether they succeed or not, different story, but they're at least trying to get ahead of it and trying to control their destiny.
Right.
I very much believe PayPal's trying to do the same as well. I think, again, don't know whether we will succeed or not. Nobody can give a guarantee on success, but are we trying? That's the most important thing.
Some great examples, and I think that in and of itself should lend courage to virtue. I was rereading, I don't know why, but I was rereading a couple months ago, Clayton Christensen's book, The Innovator's Dilemma. And I remember reading it for the first time back when I was leading a portfolio of media agencies. One media agency specifically dealt with newspapers, and the newspaper industry was in 2005 was literally trying to figure out, how do we take our incumbency and turn it into advantage? What are the things that really are our core equities, and how do they carry with us if we change our means of distribution, if we change our product delivery, if we change basically the product itself? And one of the points that Christensen makes is that it is always mortally difficult for the incumbent to declare to itself, I'm going to put my life at risk, basically, to reinvent myself, to establish this new capability that the marketplace is demanding of me. And so I think that those leaders are brave enough to realize, okay, I'm putting a huge amount at risk, but it's necessary if I'm really going to advance out. And I don't know if you've heard these stories. I don't know how anecdotal they are, but it's that moment when a CEO or a senior leader within particularly a large and established enterprise realizes that he's a 20-something away from a group of kids in a basement somewhere just knocking out the functionality of their core product.
Yep.
And doing it with AI and then offering it for free. And then just basically coming in, blowing up the marketplace. And so when faced with that kind of mortal danger, you do have to risk your life and livelihood to really fundamentally respond to those conditions.
I mean, I've always believed in this, that offense is the best defense. But in this case, what really Clayton Christensen is saying in the classic innovator's dilemma, you have to give up what you have. Mm-hmm. And that is really hard. Like Dave, that is really hard, freaking hard. Mm-hmm. And give up because you're essentially saying that I don't know what the future is. I have no idea. Mm-hmm. I'm going to take a bet on something that I believe in. If it works out, there is a path to the future. If it doesn't work out, I'm just completely crushed.
Right. Exactly.
Like that takes courage. That takes moral courage. And very few people, I mean, this maybe ties to a area that you and I should probably spend a couple of minutes around leadership. But I actually think leadership is in short supply in pretty much everywhere in corporate America at this point. Lots of people are just plain fearful of their jobs and not necessarily taking the risks that they need to take to move into this new world.
And I think that leaders have been historically in charge of ultimately any business's go-to-market strategy, right? The playbook of how are we exactly going to market? What are we taking to market? Where are we taking it to market? How are we taking it to market, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that those things have been, again, AI specifically has entirely disrupted, and I think we've spoken about this, it's disrupted the means of going to market,
yes,
cost of going to market, the efficiency and effectiveness of going to market,
yep,
the flexibility of going to market. Yep. All of these things have been fundamentally changed by AI, but what hasn't changed is that the C-suite is in charge of that go-to-market. Yes. It's not being written by AI. It's not being written by people practicing with AI. It's being written by those people who are ostensibly the leaders of the organization. So
100%.
Let's shift gears as we kind of spend the last few minutes talking here about the impact that AI has on small business specifically, a group that's near and dear to both of our hearts. And, I mentioned it, something that you had mentioned is that what small businesses perhaps have not realized fully yet. There's certainly that group of early adopters, the 10% who have really embraced AI, who've probably realized how much money they can save by using AI, how much more efficient they can make their operations. What do you think is the kind of both the impact and the and the means by which small businesses will realize how much they can save by doing things with this agent or this assistant, this stability that AI offers them.
It's not one thing. When I think about the jobs to be done, I mean, it's a classic framework of any small business. Like, people get into small business because they're really passionate about something. They want to do something with the skills and the excitement that they have around whatever problem they're trying to solve. Somebody goes into starting a restaurant because they really love the kind of food that they want to make. They don't go into small business because they want to run the operations of a restaurant.
Right.
And if you just stick to that vertical, any vertical, like if you go into that, and when you're talking about, hey, I'm passionate about the food, the culinary skills that I'll bring in, all the other things that you need to run a restaurant. A restaurant is a very complicated business, incredibly complicated business. So all the other things that you're trying to get, how do I get customers? How do I manage the operations of my restaurant? How do I get the food supply to come in? How do I ensure that ultimately I have the workers that I need coming back from my Indeed days? How do I hire for the people that I really need? And it's a high turnover industry. All of these things that you suddenly realize when you're the CEO of the restaurant, that is a big challenge that they're not anticipating. And in the past, they had to do most of these things. I mean, I've talked to, in the last couple of decades that I've been in this small business oriented roles, I've done both consumer and business oriented roles, Dave. But where it breaks my heart is when I see these incredibly passionate entrepreneurs and the struggle that they go through and the amount of hours that they spend just trying to get their basic business operations in place. And so for the longest time, I had hoped that the world will change and make it a more level playing ground for these individuals so that they can compete more fairly with the larger companies, the companies with more wherewithal.
Mm-hmm.
I think that time has come. Like, I truly believe that with AI is actually going to fundamentally transform the advantage playing ground that small businesses have. So what do I mean by that? Things like, how do I get customers? It's going to dramatically shift. The economics is going to dramatically shift. The cost of acquisition is going to, hopefully, over time, be much more manageable for a small business. And the type of intelligence that you need to reach the right customer through the right channel with the right message, that will also change. When you talk about how do I manage my cash flow, and we talked about getting paid, right? So both paying and getting paid, paying for my supplies as a restaurant, or getting paid by my customer, whatever payment transaction happens, all of those things are going to become a whole lot different with AI. And as some imagine that if you had the best CFO in the world working for you and managing your entire cash flow and operations, that can be done. That is feasible with AI. It's constantly looking at your operations and saying, hey, you're actually going to have a shortfall this month. I'm going to give you a line of credit so that you can manage your business better and you can pay your salaries to your workers. Like, these kind of like real-time intelligence or real-time analytics is not just analytics, it's actually making decisions on your behalf. That is doable now with AI. And when you talk about operations, like plain vanilla operations, it's just going through and it's saying, okay, you know what? Let's take an e-commerce merchant in this scenario, like just again, bringing back home to some of the stuff that I'm currently thinking of. Somebody didn't like your product. They are returning the product, shipping that return label to them. That should be done by AI the moment somebody has pressed the return button. You don't have to get involved in it. Like
Right.
These things that seem like, oh man, that is like a little bit rocket science, but that is what gets in the way of someone following their passion. That is what makes them work 18, 19 hours a day. And you can get away with not doing that and focusing on the passion that you have. So I just think the world will change.
And that's, to me, I couldn't agree more. And that to me, that truly is what is exciting. And I think too, in terms of the competitive advantage that suddenly AI offers the small business, and thinking of the competitors being much larger businesses.
Yeah.
The level of speed and flexibility with which an AI enabled small business can move. A question that I've asked you before, that we had a lively conversation, and we'll just wrap up with this particular one. And that is, does creativity improve for a small business? Does the small business's creativity improve with AI? Do they become more creative because of AI?
It's a very nuanced and important question. Creativity is such an amorphous thing that people find it hard to define it also. Like, what does creativity mean? Like, it's creating something new. It's creating something, and new doesn't mean completely new. Like, we can say iPhone was a revolution, but if you go back and look at iPhone, it actually brought many things together that already existed.
Right.
Uh, so it's not like it was new in the sense of, yeah. But again, that is one of the biggest revolutions we've had in the history of mankind. So why I start with that is I actually think creativity requires someone to have the time and space to think and the time and space to debate with someone on whether their idea actually has merit or not.
Mm-hmm.
Two things. I'm not saying that's sufficient, but that's necessary. These two are necessary. One is the time and space, and the second is having a sparring partner to have the discussion on how will this creative instinct that you have ultimately create value. And both of those two are fundamentally being opened up with AI. So let's take the first one. We already talked about how much AI will free up your time to focus on your passion. So that's the time and space. You need to think. You need to be able to get out of your own way and start to talk about stuff that you couldn't have thought about. And the second part is you need a sparring partner, which Dave, like whatever the favorite tool is, I love both Claude and ChatGPT. I mean, they're both like the two children that you have in many ways.
Right.
And
And they're very different children.
very different children. And my wife calls me like if she didn't know that I was spending time with them, she would have thought that I'm having an affair. Like truly, that is the amount of time that I'm spending with these tools and many more of these agentic tools.
I said myself as well, Claude and ChatGPT.
Yes.
An inordinate amount of time with both of them.
Yes, and they're becoming like full service tools that you can even code and do all the other things that you want to do. But the point being, why I bring that back to the question you asked, it is your sparring partner.
Mm-hmm.
I'm constantly pushing it, and it's pushing me to think about things. It's not just about me giving it an instruction and doing it. It's now gotten to a stage where I'm actually having a healthy debate with it.
Mm-hmm.
And we are going back and forth. And if you really push the AI, you have to know how to push the buttons. It will start to truly have a head-to-head conflict-oriented discussion with you. And that's when you know that it's starting to get into the root of like, okay, what do you think? Like, is this really going to create this kind of a stuff? Or what are the downsides? Like, please play the red hat for me. Like, tell me all the things that I don't know. There's so many things that you can start to do with AI that will actually enable you. And you have to, yes, prompt engineering to some degree, but it's more than prompt engineering. It's actually having the creative instincts that go beyond the normal, regular path of execution and going beyond and thinking about the future that you want to create. Yeah, I wish we had more time. I could even have done a demo for you and showed you, like maybe next time we will do it. Like it's a fabulous thing to, and I'm not just talking vibe coding, vibe marketing, none of that. It actually comes down to very much this fundamental essence. What makes humans human? How can we actually use this incredible intelligence, which I believe is complementary to our intelligence, to use it to become more intelligent ourselves?
I think in terms of the entrepreneurial spark, which arguably in business is one of the essential forms of creativity, is a spark of invention of I'm going to solve this particular problem. That if AI assists in turning that spark into a raging inferno, a flame into something that's far more far-reaching, impactful, just an amazing force, I think that will be the most exciting thing for most entrepreneurs that I know, true entrepreneurs. There isn't an entrepreneur that I've ever invested in, at least, that does not want to conquer the world. Literally, when you ask them, how big is this? They're like, well, this is going to go from in every household in the world. And you kind of laugh and chuckle, and then you realize that, they're kind of enabled now to think that way, to do that kind of thing. So I think it's an enormous creativity enhancement tool because it enables the possibility. And sometimes 100%. All an entrepreneur needs is, I have the creative spark. All I need is the money, the resources, the savvy to fundamentally pull this off. And AI potentially can do that for them. So it's an exciting time, to say the least. Well, when we have our conversations, just, at every occasion that we have a chance to talk, it's always amazing and enlightening and interesting. And thank you for bearing with my ham-fisted questions. But it's funny because I now use AI to help me create really the line of questioning. It's not the questions themselves, but what am I really trying to get at something? And your use of the phrase sparring partner is wonderful, because that is kind of what it is it challenging? Well, is this really going to, because it does respond to the prompt. Did you think about this? And it gets a little insulted. And then it comes back and says, yes, frankly, I did think about this. And this is what but
That's
it's the partner that, is there 24/7, is there without necessarily an axe to grind. I mean, I've started 3 businesses with partners, and I believe that in all cases, they were fantastic experiences with those partners. But there were moments when it was either not moving fast enough, or it was too much
Yep.
confrontation and conflict, or there wasn't really enough kind of supportive evidence for either my point of view or a partner's point of view. And that just doesn't happen when you're really kind of working with Claude or ChatGPT. A fascinating conversation, my
Agreed.
friend. And thank you for giving up time on your Saturday to do this. And, I sincerely wish you the best of luck in this amazing new role that you're playing. And I hope to stay in touch as you make it
Same
happen.
here.
Thank you so much, Raj Mukherjee.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, thanks for joining us for this episode of Between Two Bs, the official podcast of the B2SMB Institute and our 5,000 plus business to small business professionals. Tune in every Wednesday for new episodes, the crossroads of the big B and the small B, Between Two Bs, on your favorite streaming services.